As a giant in the Japanese electronic semiconductor industry, Sony holds a global leading position in various fields, including CMOS image sensors, micro OLED displays, and gaming consoles. However, being an industry leader also makes it a prime target for competition. Recently, Sony has been facing challenges, particularly from Chinese manufacturers who are increasingly encroaching on its market share. Firstly, Apple's reliance on Sony is becoming a potential risk. Reports suggest that Apple is testing Samsung's 48-megapixel CIS main camera for the upcoming iPhone 16, set to launch this fall. Historically, iPhone models have typically used Sony's CIS, but issues have arisen since last year. Due to Sony's delay in delivering new image sensors, the launch timeline for the iPhone 15 became uncertain, prompting Apple to turn to Samsung for the development of new image sensors for the iPhone 16. In May, the information reported that Apple dispatched technical staff to China's Sia Technology to help them compete with Japan's Sony. Sony is the main supplier of micro OLED displays used in Apple's Vision Pro. To pressure Sony and reduce costs, Apple is enhancing Sia's capabilities and expanding its micro OLED display production. This move indicates Apple's strategy to cultivate new suppliers to reduce its dependence on Sony, aiming to lower costs and improve supply chain resilience. In the gaming sector, Sony also faces transformative pressures. The shift to a fully digital era has led to a decline in the physical games market. In January, Microsoft significantly downsized its Xbox physical games department, and Sony also laid off about 250 employees in its physical games division. This trend is driven by the normalization of streaming services and the decreased demand for traditional storage media like Blu-ray discs. Analyst Matt Piscatella predicts that the next generation of Xbox and PlayStation platforms will be entirely digital, with Sony and Microsoft preparing for this transition. Turning to the CIS market, Sony's leadership is driven by the demand for high-end smartphones, with its large-format CS product lineup dominating the supply chain. However, the sluggish Chinese smartphone market, particularly in the mid to low-end segment, has impacted orders for OmniVision and Galaxy Core. Despite holding a 55% share of the global smartphone CIS market in 2023, Sony's reliance on Apple remains significant. According to Tech Insights, Sony's Nagasaki factory in Japan produces the advanced CIS used in the iPhone 15 series cameras. Apple uses Sony's 48-megapixel CIS for the wide-angle rear cameras on the iPhone 15 and iPhone 15 Pro, and Sony's new 12-megapixel IMX913 product for the periscope telephoto lens on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Apple accounts for 55% of Sony's smartphone CES revenue, reflecting a high degree of mutual dependence. However, Apple is coordinating with Samsung to use its CIS for the iPhone 16. Samsung's triple wafer stacking design enhances transmission speed, reduces latency, and delivers higher performance with lower power consumption. This technology requires extremely high precision, currently achievable only by Sony and Samsung. The iPhone 16, launching this fall, will feature Samsung's CIS with the triple wafer stacking design, integrating photodiodes, transistors, and analog-to-digital converters across 3 wafers. In a CIS, a photodiode and 4 transistors work together, where the photodiode converts light signals into electrical signals, and the transistors handle transmission, amplification, reading, and erasing of these signals. Beyond smartphones, the automotive sector is another critical application market for CIS. Currently, the global automotive CIS market is dominated by ON Semiconductor, OmniVision, and Sony. Sony is challenging ON Semiconductor's industry leadership, aiming to capture 39% of the global market share by fiscal year 2025. The Tesla Model 3 is equipped with 8 cameras, while Sony and Honda's joint venture plans to launch the Afeela electric vehicle with over 20 cameras. ON Semiconductor has noticed Sony's ambitions, with executives visiting Japan from late October to early November 2023 to discuss with automotive clients. ON Semiconductor plans to begin CS production in Japan in 2024 to stabilize the supply chain and promote its smart sensing technology and HDR technology advantages. Amidst the advancing performance and competitive pricing of Chinese CIS products, Sony's position in the Android mid to high-end market is showing signs of weakening. Chinese manufacturers like OmniVision, Galaxy Core, and SmartSense are continuously developing high-end CIS products, narrowing the gap with Sony and Samsung. They focus on cost-performance ratios in the mid-range market and have gained market share in Android phones, security, and automotive sectors. For instance, OmniVision's OV50H sensor is now used in most high-end flagship cameras of domestic smartphones, including high-end Honor series models. SmartSense has launched several high-end CIS products for flagship cameras, and Galaxy Core's mobile CIS revenue reached 2.242 billion renminbi in 2023. Future upgrades in smartphone CIS will focus on structural design optimization, improving the structure and materials of photodetectors to enhance performance, and optimizing image processing algorithms. AI algorithms will break hardware limitations, further enhancing image clarity, dynamic range, and reducing noise to improve image quality. Facing competition, Sony Group President Kenichiro Yoshida revealed that Sony's CIS equipment investment from 2024 to 2026 will decrease by about 30%. Over the past 6 years, Sony's cumulative equipment investment in CIS has reached $10 billion. But starting in 2024, the company will shift its strategy to enter a capital recovery phase. Sony noted that with the growth in revenue and business scale, investments naturally increase. However, the rational growth of business scale and profitability is more important than the absolute amount of investment. Once the business scale reaches a certain level, it enters a capital recovery phase, and the pace of equipment investment slows down. In the micro OLED market, Sony's position is more stable. According to Segmental Consulting, Sony accounted for 87% of global XR device micro OLED screen shipments in 2023. As early as 2016, Sony developed micro WOLED for the VR/AR market and achieved mass production in 2019. With the introduction of microlens technology, Sony's micro OLED screen brightness reached 5,000 nits, preparing it well for Apple's Mr. Product requirements. Research institutions predict that global microdisplay shipments will reach 16 million units in 2024, with annual demand for micro OLED screens surpassing 21 million units over the next 5 years. With more manufacturers entering this field, Sony faces increasing competition. At the Display Week 2024 conference, both Samsung and LG showcased micro OLED technologies and products to attract Apple. Samsung presented a 1.03-inch RGB OLED microdisplay developed in collaboration with Imagine, boasting higher brightness than WOLED plus CF technology. LG showcased a 1.3-inch 4K OLED microdisplay with 10,000 nit brightness, utilizing a microlens array to increase brightness by about 40%. Amid these challenges, Sony must continue to invest heavily in R&D and production to maintain its competitive edge. The CIS market has become a red ocean, where Sony's advantages are being eroded and profit margins are shrinking. The company must carefully balance investment and returns to stay competitive. On the other hand, the micro OLED market remains a blue ocean. With its early start and solid technical foundation, Sony holds an absolute leading position. However, several domestic and international companies are eyeing this blue ocean and aiming to take a share from Sony, though significant investment will be required before they see any tangible results. In summary, as a global leader in the semiconductor industry, Sony must continuously improve its technological innovation, production efficiency, and market strategies to maintain its market position and competitive edge in the face of competition from Chinese manufacturers. In both the CIS and micro OLED sectors, Sony needs to respond flexibly to market changes, maintain its leadership in the high-end market, and capture more shares in the mid-range market to stay ahead in the intense market competition. That concludes today's video. Do you think Japan's semiconductor industry will be overtaken by China? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.